Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Stacking Chips, your strategy source for the 2007 World Series of Poker, the Bellagio Cup, and the dozens of other events going on right here in lovely Las Vegas. Let's see, we're about halfway through the World Series right now, but I got to tell you, I'm so excited about having my guest on the show today. I'm just going to get right to it. She's one of the most well-known ladies in poker. She plays for Team PokerStars, one of the more attractive, if not most attractive players on the circuit. Ladies and gentlemen, Isabelle No Mercy Mercier. Isabelle, welcome to the show.
Nice
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So we're about halfway through the World Series right now.
Already?
I think. Maybe not quite, but we're getting there. How's it going for you so far?
It's going good in the sense that I feel good. I have a lot of energy, motivation. I have the rage. I really want to make my first final. I mean, I'm really into it. It's not going so good because I don't have those results, but you know, I'm just keeping trying.
Yeah.
Just keep trying.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in poker.
I was the poker manager in Paris in the aviation club for 5 years, so that's really when I got into the game. But I've been playing forever since I'm very young, so I've been playing forever. And when TV came in, sponsoring, internet, I just jumped. I mean, this was just natural for me to become a professional at this point. So 3 years ago, about 3 years and a half ago, turned pro.
And how long have you been on Team PokerStars?
About 3 years. It was pretty quick. I mean, I struggled for a few months before I won the World Poker Tour Ladies Night, and I joined Team PokerStars the next week.
Great.
So this was good.
So you had a pretty good World Series last year.
Yeah.
If memory serves, you had, I forget if it was a final table or just a very deep finish.
It was the final table,
Okay.
the final of the $5,000 tournament, and it was a great final with Phil Hellmuth and Marcel Lusk and Vinny Vin, and you know, it was the best day of my life.
Sounds like a very stacked table.
Yes, yes.
And you also mentioned that you tried to execute a bluff, which didn't work so well.
Yeah, I'm the best at doing that. Ridiculous bluffs. This is a funny story because I've played, the thing is I've never played with Phil Hellmuth before last summer, ever. I mean, just those things happen sometimes, you know, some players I've never played with and some others are always at my table, so I've never played with Phil Hellmuth. And I was keep telling, you know, I've never played with Phil Hellmuth, that's bizarre. And last summer, I mean, he was on my face all summer. Every tournament I was sitting down, he was there. And he was involved in the big hand at some point in another tournament, and he folded, and he was sure the guy was bluffing, and I was sure the guy wasn't bluffing. It was a really big hand, and he really impressed me on that end. I mean, he eventually folded because somebody called the clock, but he really was sure the guy was bluffing, and the guy showed the bluff. And I was, wow, I went out of my mind. I mean, I was like, wow, how can you see that? And Phil looked at me directly in the eyes, and he told me, you know, those people, they all try to bluff me all the time. He said, do you know how I become rich? I just called people's bluff. So that's really funny because he tells me that, and like 4 days later, I'm in the final table with him, and what do? I'm going to bluff Phil Hellmuth. But I did a really like beginner's bluff, and of course he saw that coming. I mean, 1,000,000 kilometers away, called Instinct with King Eye on the river. So that was really bad.
No pair? King High?
Yeah, King Eye. There's an ace there, but you know,
Okay.
I like to say King Eye. It looks even more like my bluff is really bad.
Well, it helps to have an apparel logo deal and you know, television commercials selling your products and other things. But I'm sure he probably does do pretty well off calling people's bluffs, and I'm sure you probably do well too, because as a well-known player. And I'm getting a little bit of this myself this year after having luck or success in the World Series last year. But definitely people always want to sort of bluff the known players.
Yeah, and they don't like to be bluffed either, so that's a little problem. The problem with this particular bluff is I kind of did it like halfway. And you cannot do that in poker. I mean, you just go for it and you go all in, or you just abandon the pot and you check. You don't do the half thing, and that's what I did, just to save myself a few chips in case it doesn't work. So of course it didn't work, but the few chips I had were not enough. I mean, I had to go in the next hand, so it's ridiculous. So that's the big problem of this particular bluff, is you do it or you don't. But I have 8 high, so I mean, I go all in to take the pot, or I just check and leave it to him. So I decided to do that.
I always suggest when I'm working with people on cash games, and I'm not a cash game specialist, but one thing I have noticed, and I always sort of talk to my friends about this in cash games, whenever a player moves all in but leaves even a couple of dollars on, you know, over his cards or something, a lot of the times he's on a bluff in that spot, and he doesn't want to lose everything.
Yeah.
But when a player is desperate to get every single penny he has in the pot, usually it means he's got a pretty strong hand.
It can happen. Most of the time is like that, and this is exactly the half bluff I'm talking about. But you can also do it at another level. I mean, I will do exactly the same against Phil, and the next time I have a monster, I'm gonna do the half thing and pretend that but he's not idiot. He might see that, I'm not idiot either, and this is another level. So that's the beauty of poker. I know that I know that I'm gonna do that.
Right, exactly.
Which is great.
Exactly. So I thought you'd be a great person to have on the show and answer this particular question that we got here that has to do, because you are affiliated with an online site, and somebody emailed a question in asking about a software program that helps players track their results and histories and databases and stuff in order to help them improve their play.
Okay.
So let me pull up the question here.
Okay.
I'm very prepared here on my phone. Have to enter in my password, and of course the email is no longer on the front of my screen. Okay, this question is from John, and he says, "Howdy, John. I really enjoy your Stacking Chips videos." Thanks, John. "Your experiences, your guests, and email questions are all excellent. My question relates to online play. In a previous episode, you were interviewing Mr. Pearl Jammer, John Turner. He mentioned that at times he would reference a play history program to influence his decision-making. I have heard of these programs before, but being a novice no-limit hold'em player, I would like some information about how they can be used to improve my play." His first question is, how does such a program track history?
Okay, I know a few of those programs, particularly because I have one of my best friends who's a professional player online. That's all he does. He plays online, and he showed me a lot of those things. So the ones he showed me were a poker tracker program that works with Poker ASUD together. I don't think it's that complicated to buy them, download them, and install them. And then after, you gotta get yourself familiar with this. And what happens? It's gonna show you numbers next to the players at the table. But then you have to play, right? I mean, it has to accumulate information before it starts to show you the numbers. And the numbers were gonna say the level of aggressivity of these players. You choose the information you want to see there. Like my friend, he used a lot of the continuation bet. This player 60% of the time will do a continuation bet, and this player 70% of the time will fold to a continuation bet. All kind of information like that, where you got to work with it and get used to it because you have all those numbers around the player's name. So once you become familiar, it's very helpful. Very helpful. I mean, if you want to take a decision and you realize this player does a continuation bet 85% of the time. I mean, what is this bet worth on the flop when you raised before the flop? So it gives you a lot of information like that. However, it works only if you play a lot with the same players. Because, statistics and stuff like that, they're only really true over a very large number of hands. I mean, It's not like after 10 hands you have a percentage, but it doesn't mean anything because it's 10 hands. So it's just good if you always play like cash game, same type of stakes, and all the time with the same players on the same side.
Yeah.
That's where it's useful.
Right, and just to add on to that, from my experience in working with, I think I've used Poker Tracker and a couple of other programs also, it's helpful because it records all of the hands that you play as well.
Also, yeah.
So you can go back and look at your winning percentage with aces,
Exactly.
with ace-king. You can see which hands you've had the most success with,
Yes.
and which hands you've had the least success with. So one hand that a lot of people think is a great hand is something like 10-Jack. But people also find that over the long term, you can look back at every 10-Jack you play, and a summary of every time you've played 10-Jack to show whether you're profitable on the hand, whether you're losing on the hand.
Maybe you don't play it right. That's
Exactly.
10-Jack plays good against a few hands, and it's good for that. It's true, and you can see your own level of, if your level of aggressiveness is really too low or stuff like that, you can adjust your play according to that. I mean, you're going to see the winning players; they have all about the same numbers. That's
Right.
the funny thing, right? You see, okay, this is a pro, this is a pro, this is a pro. You can tell that. I mean, you sit down at your table, you see you have 5 pros just by the numbers. So it's kind of, it's useful for
Definitely,
that.
very helpful for sure. And I think most of the full-time cash game players, or the more, I shouldn't say the novice, but the players that are more serious about the game are using the software.
I think they are.
So I think it's probably to your advantage to use it as well.
I think they are, and I think they really feel naked if they don't have it. I mean, if my friend sits down in a game where he doesn't have his tracker, it's like, well, how can I take a decision? I don't know how's the guy playing. I'm like, oh my god, you do like me. You take a decision.
It's almost like in sports where if everyone on your the team you're playing is on steroids, then you better be on steroids too so you can compete with them, because that's basically what it is. It's like steroids for online poker players. So his next question is, typically how much does a program cost?
I'm not sure about that, but it's not very expensive.
Yeah, they're like
it's less than
$50, $75.
Yeah,
they're pretty cheap,
yeah.
and I think the benefit you get out of them is tremendous.
Yeah,
and they're not paying us to say this either. And then the last question.
We'll call them though.
Right, we will be calling them after this. The last question is, at what level of sit and go or tournament play does such a program offer valuable information?
Then again, I'm gonna say cash game. I mean, this is really, really for cash game. I mean, I guess you could use it in tournament, but because of the blinds factor, the player style is gonna change in the tournament because of that. So it might not really be accurate, the information that the software is recording. So it's really for cash game.
Yeah, I agree completely. If let's say you double up the first hand of a tournament that had 2,500 in starting chips, you're only profiting 2,500 on the hand, whereas deep in a tournament, when the average stack is 300,000 and you steal the blinds for 15,000, with the same hand, it really throws off your numbers.
Yeah,
so because of the blind escalation, I think it's definitely not as valuable in tournaments, and certainly something that is more beneficial for cash games.
Totally. It might not be good at all in tournament, actually. I mean, I don't know. It might influence to take the wrong decision because of the blind factor and stuff like that. If your table break and you get down to a new table, you have no numbers, and then after 5 hands, some numbers starts to appear. They mean nothing. I mean, they really mean nothing. So I think in tournaments, it's really better to focus yourself with your brain, betting patterns, players, and get into your table without the numbers.
Yeah, I agree, and it certainly helps you when you're playing live.
Yes.
If you don't have this sort of program to fall back on.
There's no numbers on the
Exactly, it's very, very different game there. Well, Isabelle, thank you very much for your insight, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thanks for the invitation.
Best of luck in the rest of the World Series, and hopefully you and I will end up at some final tables together.
Luck is good.
All right, thanks a lot. That's it for today's episode of Stacking Chips. Make sure to tune in tomorrow and every day throughout the World Series for more strategy talk, discussions, interviews, and more right here on Card Player TV. And keep those emails coming in at stackingchips@cardplayer.com. From Jon Poker Trip Friedberg
and Isabelle Mercier.
We're out of here. Good luck, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.